Hello, and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. There is a little glimmer of daylight out there, 5:57 a.m. Central Standard Time, the 10th day of Christmas for the 2018-2019 Christmas season. Well, we have two American blended whiskeys. We're starting the blended whiskey series for a little while, for good or ill, probably ill, but try to be open-minded and see if what will happen. Okay, I have one of the real old companies, Bellows Club Whiskey. Here's Bellows Club Whiskey. I don't think it's made anymore. You can find Bellows Whiskey. They've changed the label. Now, here is the information about Bellows. Company was founded in 1830. Used to have this housefly on there. A housefly surrounded by a laurel and a little ribbon tied at the bottom. Very strange. The glare, I don't know if you can see it. Strange logo. I don't think Bellows was ever a distiller. They didn't own distilleries. They were a broker, much like Justerini and Brooks, J&B. If you look on their website, they don't really produce whiskey or other liquors and wines. They just make contracts with people to produce it. This is not that uncommon. So Bellows and Company, they're based in New York City, but they were around for a long time. I don't know what happened with the family, and there was an old famous, or interesting, I should say, I don't know about famous, lawsuit. I was reading the appellate court decision. It took a good while to read it, about Bellows suing another company that put out a blended whiskey called Fellows. And they tried to make their F look like a B, and it was a big, and the judge ruled in favor, they ruled in favor of Bellows because they said that the other company was, they knew what they were doing. They were trying to mimic Bellows so people would just grab for it off the shelf and not maybe pay attention. It's chilly outside, 55 degrees. The temperature's dropping. It will go up to about 66 today. I hear some kind of animal outside. I don't know what that is. It's almost like a wild hog or something. Don't know what it is. I kept hearing it growling or chirping. A hog doesn't growl. It's strange. Wish you could hear that. Anyway, back to Bellows. At some point, the family got out of the business, and it was acquired by Jim Beam Company. Jim Beam, after a little while, didn't want it. Beam-Suntory, I guess, once that buyout happened, didn't want it, so they sold it off to Luxco. So today, it says Luxco, St. Louis, Missouri. And I think Luxco really does mostly, not all, because they do have a little distillery in Kentucky, but they mostly do contract distilling. I bought this Bellows Club Whiskey and the Bellows blended whiskey, just Bellows with the B, which is coming up in a month or two. I bought that at International Market in Metairie, Louisiana, on Barron Street, Metairie, Louisiana. So it's a very strange and interesting grocery store. So here we go with Bellows. It's going to go up against, and I did a solo review of this. It's going to go up against Beam's 8-Star. I don't have too much left, as you can see. Fernand Gauthier says first. Hey, Fernand. Thanks for watching. A little bit left, maybe enough for 2 more examinations, taste challenges. Beam's 8-Star, introduced in 1976. You might see this behind the bar at a restaurant or a lounge. 80 proof, just like Jim Beam. Kentucky whiskey, a blend. It says Kentucky Springs Distilling Company, Claremont in Frankfort, Kentucky. That's not a real company. It's Jim Beam, Beam-Suntory. 80% grain neutral spirits, 20% straight whiskeys, 2 years or more old. So we're talking about the minimum bourbon, straight bourbon aging, 2 years. So they're probably using a 2-year age Jim Beam and putting it in there with the 80% grain alcohol, grain neutral spirits. Okay. Bellows, like I said, is one of the really old brands. No matter who owns it now, the brand is old, 1830. Straight whiskeys in this product are 4 or more years old. So we got at least a 4-year aged straight whiskey. And it's probably Jim Beam. And I'll tell you what, 20% straight whiskey, 80% grain neutral spirits. Because this is back in the Claremont, Frankfort, Kentucky days. In other words, Jim Beam, under United States government supervision, blended and bottled. It says blended and bottled, doesn't say distilled. Interestingly, it doesn't say distilled in Kentucky. And on the bottle, it doesn't say Kentucky blended whiskey. It says American blended whiskey. Huh. Makes one wonder, could this have been contracted out from, and you can see this is a very old bottle. Could this have been contracted out from Seagram's in Indiana? It's very possible, especially since the label, it's what the label says will tip you off. It's saying American blended whiskey and not Kentucky. So it might have come across the river from Indiana and then was just blended in Kentucky. It might have I think what may be the case here is that you've got your grain neutral spirits coming from Seagram's Midwest Grain Products, MGP, now in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, and then they're blending it with the Jim Beam 2-year-old. This I don't know. This is only a guess. This is theory, not fact. Okay. Although I think it makes sense when you think about it. Whatever the case, blended American blended whiskey. There you go. Not much we can say. This liter bottle was what, $8.99, I believe? Yeah, $8.99. The label was dirty. You can see it's chipped up. Looked like some kind of insects were munching on the bottom. Probably silverfish, I guess. They like to eat paper or glue or something. So I took some warm water and soap and I washed the label in the bottle and made it look better. I ordered the Beam's 8-star. It's not sold in this town. It's not sold in St. John the Baptist Parish. There's a place called Cheap Smokes, which ain't that cheap anymore. And they have a few leftover bottles, which are very much overpriced. 375 milliliter plastic bottles. I'd never pay what they want. I bought one once. These are old 2005 bottles. And back in the old Beam's 8-star days when it was a 75-25 blend, 25% straight whiskey. It's been reduced to 80-20. Okay. But what I did with the 8-star, I just asked the store manager locally about it. And he said, I'll call the distributor. And the next day they had it, or yeah, the next day. So, and it was $7.99 for the bottle, 750 milliliter. You can get this at Dorgnac's in a big handle bottle, the plastic bottle, for $16.99, I think. Oftentimes, I believe if you go to a bar or restaurant and you order a Beam and Coke, say, give me a bourbon and Coke, you might not be getting Jim Beam white label. You might be getting that. Next time you go to a bar, just nonchalantly, don't make an issue out of it because they'll get paranoid. I've done that before. I looked over and they get paranoid. What are you doing? What are you looking at? But just while you're there, just nonchalantly look at you can see what their well drinks are. You can look, say, oh, okay. And I've been to some nice restaurants and looked, and I said, wow, Crown Rus vodka. That's basically the worst of the worst. And there they have got it. And that's what they're making their Bloody Marys with. I said, gee whiz. And they're charging high hat prices for just the worst. I'm saying it's the worst. I don't know what the worst vodka is. Crown Rus is big around here. Or you say T.W. Samuel's blended whiskey, and that's what they're going to make a whiskey sour with. The cheapest stuff, $8.99 a bottle at Winn-Dixie. But anyway, that's the story. I got the Beams 8-star for $7.99 on the taste test. Will I be able to tell them apart? I don't think so, because if I was going to be buying American blended whiskey, and honestly, I really would not be, these would be two that would probably be a better choice. But the one I would grab would be the 7 Crowns, the Seagram 7 Crown, which is more expensive, but it's better. It's about $12 a bottle, but it's a much nicer product. And it's 75% to 25. It's 25% straight whiskey. I don't know what bourbon they're using in it. Could be Bullet. Comes from the same facility. That would make sense. Or one of the Bullets come from Lawrenceburg, Indiana. The others come from Kentucky, but it's owned by the same people, Diageo. So that was a lot of background, but I like to set these up with some good background so people can learn. They're both pale. I'm doing that because I want to get them even. They're both pale, almost a straw, but it's gold, but it's getting towards straw. Do these have coloring added? Doesn't seem to be the case. Does not seem. Are American blended whiskeys allowed to have color added? Yes, caramel color can be added. Can they use flavorings? Yes, up to 2% blending sherry. That's the flavoring that the government allows. If you read the Tax and Trade Bureau website, it has a handbook of spirits, which they spell whiskey without an E, interestingly, with no E, not EY, but KY. Early times, if you haven't noticed, early times Kentucky whiskey is spelled without the E. There's no rule about spelling whiskey, okay? In the United States, the government in Washington, D.C. chooses to spell whiskey without an E. Others spell it with an E. All right? It's not a law. It's a convention, meaning a custom. Other countries, it may be a law. Like Canada, maybe it's not allowed to be spelled EY. I don't know about that. So they can have up to 2% blending sherry. Sup, says the Raptor. Getting drunk at an early AM, are you? No. No, I don't think I'll be getting drunk off of this little bit of whiskey. You see, it's just a minimal amount. Now I'm doing a taste challenge, trying to see if I can tell them apart. I think they're both going to be tolerable. I wouldn't say good per se. The Beams 8-star is an approximation of bourbon. What I mean is you'll pick up some Jim Beam flavor. That green wood, if you notice, Jim Beam has a unusual green wood. It's like the wood was never dried all the way. And it has a strange cellar mold aspect, which I also picked up with some British beers, British ales like the Abbot Ale, the Green King Abbot Ale. I don't know why it has that. It's just what that's how I describe it. It's probably not an accurate description, but it's my way of relating it to you. So will you ever see Bellows Club Whiskey in a grocery store? Well, in Louisiana, grocery stores sell liquor. I know in your state, it's probably a liquor store. Probably you will not. I think it's discontinued because the Luxco website is only showing the Bellows, the same label I have in the cabinet. But these whiskey companies are kind of funny. You don't think you'll see it, and then you turn around, there it is. They have a lot of what we call hidden brands. They're not on their portfolio, but they exist. So I wouldn't count it out. I did see the club whiskey at a Chinese restaurant in this town. It looked like an old bottle like this one, so I don't think it was a recent purchase. It was at their bar. All right, on with the show. I don't have to close my eyes because they're the same color. That won't throw me off. Okay, yeah. So we're getting the stereotypical bourbon whiskey, blended whiskey aroma. And blended whiskey is not that different from bourbon whiskey, and I'll explain why if you'd like me to. Are you an alcoholic? Says the Raptor. No, I'm a hobbyist. Um, you know, alcoholics, they have to drink. Problem drinkers, or we prefer the term problem drinkers. They can't handle not drinking. Freaks them out, you know. But I can take it or leave it. I went to watch a football game. The game was 4 hours long. I just drank water. I was perfectly satisfied drinking water. And now a friend of mine, he had to bring his beer. He wanted to drink beer. Well, it's fine. You know, it's his business. I don't dictate other people's business. But I was say, I'm just going to drink water, you know. And I was very happy. Now, when I got home, I drank a little beer. I think, Keystone Ice. And I was sipping on that E40, which turned out to be a pretty good malt liquor, 10% flavor with honey. It was a strange thing because the more I drank it, the more I like it. And usually with those kind of products, each sip is worse than the previous sip. It just, you start with a C and it goes to a D- or an F. But this did not happen. It went up and improved, which I thought was a very good thing. I can't think of any other word to use. So here we get a bourbon-esque aroma, lots of corn. So if you're not into corn, maize, corn, this could really offend you. If you smelled it, you might think it's bourbon, but the char is so faint. The char. Now, grain neutral spirits have to be stored in wooden vessels. That's clearly stated on the government regulations. Doesn't have to be charred vessels though. It's just wooden. What size? What shape? There's no law about that. It just say wooden vessels. How long do they have to be stored? There's no length requirement. Could be 1 day. So here we just get corn, cornmeal, or corn grits, polenta, yellow corn grits, I do believe. And that's it. And that's what grain neutral spirits are almost invariably produced from in the USA. Corn. Government subsidized grain. You say the government subsidizes corn. Yes. Yeah, you know, corporate welfare. Right. That's what it is. Now here it's a much different aroma. Okay, so all right, I'm surprised. I thought it was going to be the same and the same, but no. This is a much sweeter, sugary aroma. Like say a corn syrup or candy corn, which I can't stand that stuff. So, but yeah, this has like a corn syrup aroma. Could you make bourbon out of corn syrup? Yes, I think that would be allowed. The regulations only say 51% corn. It doesn't say what configuration of corn, whether it's syrup, cornmeal, corn grits. It doesn't really specify that. So you could buy a bottle of diesel or Everclear, dilute it with water down to the proper proof as it goes in the barrel. It would have to be a never before used charred oak barrel. Doesn't matter what type of oak. I think white is the preferred, but it could be any kind. And you would have to age it for a minimum of, there is no minimum. For bourbon, there's no minimum. Don't let people tell you wrong. They'll say, oh, bourbon has to be aged at least 2 years. No, that's not correct. Just bourbon. You hear what I'm saying? The word bourbon. There is no age requirement. So in theory, you could age it for 1 minute and you could have bourbon. It would have no color. No one would buy it. You can't add coloring to it. It can't have coloring added. So that would be your trap, you see. So if you age it a year, then you get some color to it, which would be like the Redemption Rye, which says at least 1 year. No, you see, the 2 year requirement is for straight bourbon. straight bourbon. So when the Jim Beam commercial talks about we age our bourbon for 2 years longer than required, 4 long years, they say, they're talking about the requirements for straight bourbon. See, there's different types of bourbon. Straight, just the word bourbon, which has no straight designation, and the blended and all of that. So the rules are strict, but they're not rigorous necessarily. You can get away with there's a lot of wiggle room in there. Okay, this one's settling down. The sweetness is going away. I'm starting to get some pungent, almost even a yeast, like a bread. You say cornbread. No, not really. Almost like a wheat bread, a dinner roll or something. Very, very, very pale bread, white. Strange. But not a bad aroma. Neither one of these smell bad. Yeah, this one has that tang, not tangy, that, I don't know what that is. Oh, it's almost like a corn husk, like if you're shucking corn and you get the husk. It's, Now remember, this is going to be something, this has to be considered. One is a 4-year aged, the straight whiskey in it, which is 20%. And the other one is aged 2 years. So is a 4-year going to be different than a 2-year? You would assume that. The blend is the same on these two, 80-20. Okay, now you ready for the taste? I know I am. All right. It's funny how these American blended whiskeys present this peculiar melon flavor. You might not notice that, but to me, it's almost like a honeydew melon. What's that coming from? Can't be from 2% blending, Sherry. I don't know. I can't explain it, but it's so different than what you would ever encounter with a bourbon, a straight bourbon. Yeah, I know what you're going to say. Yeah. You're going to say, hey, look, they're using that stuff for mixed drinks. They're not sipping it neat like you're doing. I know that. They're not designed for that. I know that. I'm just doing it just for the exercise of it, the experience of it. I like to do these straight, neat, just to get a handle on them. Well, there's definitely a rye note here. There's a definitive rye note, and the other one doesn't have that. So this one it seems to have a much higher rye mash bill than the other. If the other one has any rye, they don't have to have rye, you know. That's used as a spice, so to speak. Okay, so I had more experience with the Beam's 8-star. I drank a 375, the whole thing, and then I'm almost finished with this 750. So I think I could differentiate these based on my Beam's 8-star experience. Can't be on the Bellows Club Whiskey because this is the second time I've sampled it, and it's only been a few ounces. But I thought that the Bellows had a lot of complexity. Now remember, both of these are Beam products at the time of the bottling of these bottles. Okay, at the time of the bottling, not now. Remember, Bellows is under Luxco today. Could it be the same recipe? Certainly could be. So we're getting bread dough, not so much corn in the flavor, little of the melon, no rye. Now, if you do a Sazerac blended whiskey, if you ever try a Sazerac blended whiskey, think about it while you're sipping on it. Think about it, and you'll notice quite a bit of rye note, especially if you get one that's from Maryland, coming from the rectifying plant in Baltimore. Well, they say Baltimore, but it's really Baltimore County. It's just outside the city limits of Baltimore. You'll notice there's a rye note. It's different. And I think that facility had a history of high rye whiskey. Pikesville rye, it was their famous one. Club 400 would be a good example. And a lot of Baltimore people told me, hey, everybody in Maryland drinks that Club 400. That's all around in Baltimore. It's not sold in Louisiana. But apparently it's one of the biggies out there. Do you enjoy living? I'm not ignoring your comments. Okay. All right, so here we have more of a bread-based flavor. So maybe they're using more wheat. This we don't know. It doesn't, you're not getting any barrel char except at a faint background. Wait, and a faint background. Now this other one over here, has a much stronger bourbon. You could perhaps fool someone and tell them, here's some bourbon, if they're not a dedicated bourbon drinker. Now, if you get a bourbon hobbyist, they're going to think, wait a minute. But just say like a casual drinker who's not into the hobby like we are, you know, doing videos and watching all it. They might say, oh yeah, that's pretty mild. They would, oh, okay, your nihilism. Well, I'm Catholic, so as a Catholic, Roman Catholic, that would be, we have a totally different worldview. But we believe in free will, so you have a right to believe whatever you want. Is that not the case? Okay. So which one's better? Last sip, and then we'll call it. That one's okay. Got that strange melon thing going on, which you'll get with Heaven Hill bourbons, you'll notice. Blended whiskeys, you'll notice. This one's a lot more complex. Now you say, no, they're both 80-20. No, they don't taste the same at all. All right. They look the same. Okay. They don't smell alike at all. They don't taste the same at all. And I think this one in my right hand could be to your left, but that's, or it should be to your left. This one is better. It tastes better. It has a richer flavor, a more depth of flavor, right? And a char backbone, not heavily charred. You know that, but a char back. So if I was buying blended whiskey, and like I said, I don't really buy that except for these videos, I would pick this one. The price is about the same. I can't really comment on the Bellows price because international market sells products. They sell unusual products that are not typically sold in other stores. Okay, I don't know where they get their stuff. It's almost like they're almost like a salvage. I don't know. I can't explain it. So if you go to international market, you're not going to see the normal New Orleans lineup. Okay, you're going to see food, vegetables, meat, beer, wine, and liquor that is not going to be sold anywhere else. Okay, I've never seen Flying Horse lager beer in any store ever, anywhere, but I see it at international market. All right, I would rather talk about what I'm doing right here, okay? You're bringing up all these topics. If you want to talk about the whiskey, we'll talk. All of that stuff, I'm not interested in all that at this particular moment. People are welcome to make comments, as we know, on this channel, if they're germane to the topic, right? People are welcome to come on here live with me if, and this is important, if they use their real name and their real face. You know, you can't be in the shadows and do your thing. You can do it on your own channel, of course. You're welcome to do that. I think that this is the Bellows because I don't remember the Beams A-Star having these rich characteristics. It had some, but I think I remember the Beams having that strange melon thing going on. And I don't know why it would have that, but I think this is the Bellows, and it's a clear winner. This is assuming I got it right, and I could be wrong, and then I'll just have to live with that. That's the danger of going on live. You want to go on YouTube live and do these taste challenges and a blind taste test, you got to take the risk. If you're not willing to take the risk, don't go on live. You know, do a staged event with jump cuts and editing and all of that, and then you'll be in the safety zone. But if you're willing to take the risk, go on live like I'm doing. All right. He says, sorry. Well, I drank Knob Creek or Wild Turkey. I've never had Knob Creek, but I've had Wild Turkey 101, and I was very pleased with it. A little strong for me. I preferred the Wild Turkey 81, you know, the low alcohol version, a lot milder for my flavor preferences. So yes, I'm a fan of Wild Turkey, yes. Okay, the 81. All right, so here we go. I think this is Bellows. Wish me luck. What did I write? BCW, Bellows Club Whiskey. All right, I got it. I did it. I'm kind of happy about that because when I was going to sleep last night, I was looking at the Pelicans, their dreadful performance. But I was thinking, will I be able to tell them apart tomorrow morning? I don't know. I'm concerned. We're talking about concerned in context of the review, not concerned in reality of real life. But, and then today, here, they're so different. So I think, wow, golly, I think the Bellows Club Whiskey is going to just run roughshod over all these other blended whiskeys. I really believe that. I think it's just going to be differentiated. You're going to tell them apart, and it's going to just go to war on these. And this is my prediction. I don't think any of the other blended whiskeys I own, except for Seven Crown, is going to be able to stand up to Bellows, and possibly the King Square, which is a very odd whiskey. No coloring added, obviously. It's almost white. That is going to give it a run for its money because it has a high straight whiskey mash ratio. It's 27.5% straight whiskey. I don't know what kind of whiskey they're using, but it's straight. Whatever it is. And it'll be pretty, it is unique. It is unique. He says 101 is brutal. Yeah, 101 is just too strong for me. And I was terrified to ever try the old granddad. Old granddad 114. I can get it. But can you imagine how strong old granddad 114 proof must be? Oh, I wouldn't have the guts to do it. Although I am intrigued by it. Okay, so fascinating video for me. You might have just rolled your eyes and said, oh, yeah. And I understand that. But to me, it was a fascinating thing. The Beam's 8-star. Okay, fine. It's a good product. Not great. Good. $7.99 a bottle, fine. But the Bellows Club Whiskey really is turning out to be a champion from the initial videos here. Isn't it funny that the best sometimes disappears? Some of the best products don't last for whatever reason. So, oh well. I was sort of excited about this. Now I'm much more excited. I would like to do all the taste challenges today. You know what I mean? Like one after the other. But that's not possible. But I'd love to. Wow. Can't believe it. I am shocked, I have to admit. Jameson is delicious also. I do like Jameson. And I've tried some of their variants, which are very nice. Some good expensive Scotch is probably the best. Oh, yeah, I mean, I think so. I think you're right. Okay, well, thanks for watching this video production, and I appreciate everybody watching. And so next time we get together for this will be in 2 days. That's the plan, at least. And we're going to be looking at Bellows Club Whiskey up against the Kentucky Gold. Now, I don't think Kentucky Gold's got a chance. Kentucky Gold it's not very good. It's a Heaven Hill product, and it's one of their least appealing. But anyway, we'll do it. It won't take anywhere nearly as long. We'll fly through that, I think. But we won't rush through it. We won't rush through it. All right, that's what I like. Drinking some Mickey's grenades. Yeah, the little beer barrels. People call them grenades, but if you look carefully, it's supposed to look like a little beer barrel, like a wooden beer barrel. All right, thanks for watching this video production.